Barackman from Finding Bigfoot and a well-known Bigfoot researcher. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. But it's Barackman, for whatever that's worth. Cliff Barackman.
Barackman. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. People mispronounce it all the time. It took me years to learn how to say it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, me and my daughter have been interested in Bigfoot forever, and, she's 16 now. She's sitting next to me, if you wouldn't mind saying hi to her real quick.
Well, what's her name?
Her name is Megan.
Hi, Megan. I'm glad you can join us.
Yeah, so, like I said, we'll make this pretty quick. To basically jump right to the heart of things, for people interested in doing research on Bigfoot, how would you recommend they start?
Start by doing something you enjoy doing. And what I mean by that is, if you're like a book nerd, then what you should start doing is reading as much as you can about it. If you like doing database searches online, you should start doing that and develop your own database. If you like hiking and camping, then you should go out and do that and try to become a field researcher. There are so many different ways that people can contribute to the field of Bigfooting that it's really up to the individual what avenue they want to pursue.
Oh, okay. So for a first-timer that wants to be a field researcher, how would you suggest they start? Because I know a lot of people just figure, oh, it's easy, get a backpack and hit the woods. What are things they should look for in areas to concentrate on?
One of the best ways to start is to frequent areas where Bigfoots have been seen before, especially if they've been seen a number of times in a small area, say a 5 or 10 miles in every direction, 100 square mile area or 50 square mile or 10, 25 square mile. Go to an area where Bigfoots have been seen before, even if it's once, but the more the better, and then go there as much as possible. Because most of the time you go to the woods for Bigfooting, Bigfoots aren't there. Or if they are there, they don't show themselves, or you don't detect their presence. But that's okay. That doesn't mean that you can't do work, though, because your job as a Bigfoot researcher is to become very acquainted with one area. So when they are there, you can try to connect some dots to figure out why are they there. And when they're not there, you can try to think to yourself, well, what's missing? And that will help you broaden your search to other areas that have similar circumstances, environments, and plant and animal life.
Okay, so you'd recommend if there's a sighting and somebody, and then there's another sighting, that they focus on one area first, like as you said, to try to connect the dots. Don't jump from like this state park to that state park and bounce all over the place.
Well, if your specific goal is to recover Bigfoot information, Bigfoot data, then I would look for an area with a cluster of sightings and nearby to home if you can, if that's possible. The closer the better, because the closer a location is, the more frequently and less expensively you can visit there. Because you want to get to know the area all the time, in every season, in all the different winter or weather conditions, because you want to get to know that area so you can start detecting patterns of wildlife presence, whether it's Bigfoots or bears or deer for that matter. All that stuff matters, because since Bigfoots are perfectly normal species of animals, they're going to those areas for a reason. And the fact that people have seen them before, or hopefully seen them a number of times before in that small area, that gives you more assurance that, yeah, this is a place they actually go to as opposed to pass through on the way somewhere else.
Oh, okay. What would you recommend, as far as like equipment to bring for out in the field?
Any new Bigfooter, a newbie to the field, has access to the best data recording device ever invented, pen and paper. Get a notebook and dedicate it only to Bigfoot stuff. And every time you go to the field, whether you hear something or not, record the conditions record the temperature, the weather conditions, where you are, what things you see, what plants and animals are there, what sort of berries you might see. Start building your own personal database for your own personal research spot. And then branch out from there into other equipment. A really good, low-price, high-quality piece of equipment that most people can have access to are sound recorders. That you can get a pretty good one for like $100, and that's within reach for most people. So save up some money for a couple months if you have to, if you're a young person, like a 14-year-old, 15, 16-year-old, like Megan, for example. Otherwise, just go buy a $100 recorder, one that records all night long, 5, 6, 7 hours is preferable, and let it rip every single night, the moment you get out of the car. If say you arrive at a location at 3 in the afternoon, start it then. 9 o'clock at night before you get to bed, at midnight or something, change the batteries. If nothing has happened, start it again. Always have a recorder running.
Oh, okay, that's good advice. Always keep something running.
Always, because you never know when they're going to scream, and if you don't have it running, you're going to miss it.
Oh, okay, yeah. A question I would have is, my daughter and her friend actually found a footprint about 3 years ago. We tried casting it, but the problem we had is it rained, and it wasn't really deep. How would you recommend to cast a footprint like that? When it's raining and it's not that deep.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to backtrack to before your question. The first thing you should always do with a footprint is take photographs of it, if possible, with a scale item. And in fact, you should take as many photographs of the footprint as possible from as many different angles as possible. There's actually there's actually software that I had it on my phone, the last phone I had before it broke or something. That you can take a bunch of pictures of something, like 16, 25, 35 pictures, and the computer split it together into a 3-dimensional model. That should be we should start using that with Bigfoot footprints. So that's the first step, is to take a lot of pictures of the impression with a scale item. After that, and you move on to casting, well, there's a variety of weather, temperature, and water situations that would make casting next to impossible, but it can be done. In your situation where it was raining, Megan, two of the things that jump to my mind right away is to cover the print and cover your working area with a tarp or whatever. If you're there alone, you just drop the whole tarp over you and just work kind of in the darkness with your headlamp or something like that, and try to keep the water away from the footprint. Sometimes that's not possible, but you can do things like dig ditches or moats around it, 3, 4, 5 feet away to keep the water from running in it if it's at a low point and that sort of thing. Keep the water out of it if possible. If it's already pretty wet, it sounds like it was, then what you need to do is you need to mix the plaster thicker than you would have normally. So the water in the environment can add to the plaster and it won't screw up the mix. Because a mix that's too watery is almost useless, unfortunately. And let's see, what else did you say? How did the cast? I'm missing one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, well, I'll just forget about it for now, and if I remember it, then, Oh, the shallowness, that's what you want to address. To cast an impression of a very shallow print, what you do is that you cast the shallowness, but you get about a 2 or 3 inch perimeter around the impression, like overflow area. So anybody who looks at the cast can see how shallow it actually was. So you cast the impression and let a lot of it flow over into the substrate next to the impression. So it can record the differences in depth. That's what you do.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's, good to know when, my daughter and her friend, like I said, when they found that footprint, we took photos of it with our cell phones, but we were more annoyed because we didn't have casting materials or anything with us. It was more, let's just go for a hike, and it started raining.
Uh-huh.
So we kind of got caught off guard, which, I kick myself daily for.
You can't always be prepared, and from my experience, if you're not messing up, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not Bigfooting, because it seems that Bigfooting is mostly about making mistakes.
Yeah, my daughter, and me, and her friend, we go, like I said, almost every weekend in the spring, summer. Up here now in the snow, obviously we can't because everything's covered in 2 feet. What would you say is the best time of year for people to go out bigfooting?
That's tough because I encourage people to go out at all times of year. Whenever it's safe. Like right now, you guys are getting hit pretty hard up there in the Northeast, so I wouldn't go out now because it might cost you your life. But I would go as much as possible because, again, a lot of the success that comes from bigfooting is knowing the area and knowing what's happening in the area right now. See, because the Bigfoots that are out there right now, just kind of think of it like, okay, there's a static number of them, and they don't seem to hibernate. They might like lower their activity levels, like bears on the coast who don't truly hibernate. They may do that sort of stuff, but they're always somewhere. So where do the local Bigfoots go at the height of summer? That's valuable information. Where do the local Bigfoots hang out in the worst times in winter? That's also very important information. So the best places to go for bigfooting is where the Bigfoots are. But how do you figure that out? That's what really bigfooting is all about.
Yes, going out and, like you said, we go to an area, we had, a huge tree fall over, we turned around, we watched, it was still bouncing, but there was nobody or nothing in sight. And, different theories on Bigfoot. You've probably been obviously asked this 100 times. What's your theory on Bigfoot?
How so? Like what their origins are, or what they are in? Be a little bit more specific with the question, and I can answer it better.
What they are in general. Some people said interdimensional. Some people said, a crossbreed with an ape, etc.
Oh, I see. They are a perfectly normal species of bipedal hominoid. They're almost certainly a hominin. Let me back up and define those terms for the listeners who may not know that yet. Hominoid is a biological family that includes all of the great apes and human beings. There's certain morphological body traits that they have, but that put them in the hominoid family. But we are hominoid. All the known apes are, and pretty much all of our ancestors are. Hominin is a special branch of the hominoid family that is reserved for human beings and all of our ancestors. That would include Neanderthals and Homo erectus, even Australopithecines, the Lucy fossils, and that sort of thing. Anything in that family is called a hominin. And one of the defining traits of a hominin is that it walks on 2 legs. And Sasquatches seem to match that pretty well. So they're very likely some sort of relict hominin. And relict, of course, is a biological term again. That means left over, like still alive today. All the animals we see today are relict because they have survived the evolutionary process till today. They are relict bears. That's the bears that still exist, from the Ice Age or whatever, the grizzly and the polar bear. These would be relict hominins. Basically things that scientists today don't recognize as still living, but once did live, and it just so happens that they survived in these little isolated pockets throughout the globe. So Sasquatches seem to be a perfectly normal primate and a hominoid, and probably a hominin as well, that just happens to live here in North America.
Okay, yeah, that's, I know you got to get running, and, one thing I tell people, I'll do some small lectures in the area, and people go, well, how do you know, Bigfoots are real if you've never seen one? And I says, well, I'm an avid outdoorsman. I go, I was out in the woods, and there was a moose literally 3 feet from me, and I didn't know it was there until it started chewing on the brush. Same thing with a bear. They could crouch down. Just because you don't see them at that point doesn't mean they don't exist.
That's correct. correct. You know, what people ask, I don't bother even engaging so much on those questions anymore, because I have seen one, and it's like saying, do you believe in dogs? How do you know? They're real, because I've seen one, you know? So, yeah, I don't really bother with that, but next time somebody asks you, if you've never seen one, how do you know they're real? I used to counter that with the question, have you ever seen an atom? Of course not. How do you know they're real? Because the scientific models say they should be, and because really everything's just a model anyway for the most part. And you know what? The data, the evidence for atoms is there, and the evidence for Bigfoots is there as well. You don't have to see something to know that they're there. You can observe them in other ways, like having trees pushed down near you for no explicable reason, hearing the voices that don't say anything in the woods, finding big footprints, for example. The evidence is there, and much of that evidence has been reviewed by peers and seems to stand up, whether it's the Patterson-Gimlin film or the midfoot flexibility of the Sasquatch foot or any number of things. The Native American accounts, the pre-white contact Native American accounts, the evidence is there, and it turns out so are Sasquatches.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate your time. I know you got to run. I guess I seen that you're going to be up in Massachusetts this March at some point.
Yeah, absolutely will. I think it's the last weekend. The tickets have not gone on sale yet, but they should be going on the next couple of weeks. And I think my presentation is on, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's like the 30th or 31st, whatever the Friday and Saturday are right in there. That's when they're supposed to be, March 30th or 31st or something like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, thanks for letting us know, and we'll help promote that as well. I'm pretty sure you'll have a very well turnout. I know my daughter and I will definitely be there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going up there. I was getting a lot of requests through my website, cliffbarackman.com, about, hey, when are you coming to the Northeast? And I thought, you know what, I don't have a spot right now. So I called my good friend John Wilkes, who runs Squatchachusetts. He's like kind of the Bigfoot contact up there. He's got a lot of experience, a lot of good people working around him and stuff like that. Squatchachusetts. And I said, hey, John, people are asking when I can come up. Let's put something together. And we did. It's going to be great. Matt Pruitt, who's probably one of the best Bigfoot researchers I know. He lives in Tennessee right now. He's going to be speaking on Friday. John Wilkes himself is going to do a presentation on Friday and Saturday about local Massachusetts stuff. And then I'll be speaking on both days as well. I haven't quite decided which presentation I'm going to do yet, because I've got a lot of good ones, and they're all kind of fun for me to do. So we'll see.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you very much for your time. We definitely appreciate it.
Hey, I'm happy to help out. I'm glad we can make it happen.
Great, thank you.
Hey, bye, Chris. Goodbye, Megan.